Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Entrepreneurial Lunch and Learn, offered by the Lawrence and Phil Center for Entrepreneurship at Baruch College. My name is Gary Smalls. I am the program coordinator here at the Phil Center. The Phil Center is the entrepreneurship arm of Baruch College, and it provides multifaceted services, and it's a multifaceted division here at Baruch College, offering free services and programs for the entrepreneurial community. Today's Lunch and Learn webinar is presented today by Glenford Patterson. Glenn is an entrepreneur, startup investor, and a professor. Glenn is currently a lecturer, deputy chair, faculty director of entrepreneurship and management in the economics and business department at the City College of New York. And he is the co-founder of Work School and the Harlem Tech Summit. He brings over a decade of experiences in the fields of education, technology, and social impact, and he is extremely passionate about providing mission-driven work. So thank you so much for being with us today, Glenn. Please feel free to tell our audience a little bit about yourself before you start your presentation.
Gary, I'm not sure I can outdo that. Thank you so much for a really wonderful introduction. You need to send that to me so I can keep that intro. That was pretty wonderful. Thank you so much for just about that. And thank you for inviting me and all the guests. This should be fun. I want us to have an interactive conversation. So if you have questions while we're going, feel free to just shoot them out to Gary. You can stop and ask the question. I think I don't want this to be a monologue. I teach enough, so I'm not teaching here. We're talking, we're just having a conversation about some of the things that I think personally can help a lot of people, not just students. A lot of people just think about how this whole thing of entrepreneurship can benefit you in A, getting a job, and B, building your career path. So yeah, as Gary said earlier, I started my career, give you a quick summary, started my career in banking. Learned a lot from banking in different segment, hedge fund, different places, and got my first entrance into the startup world when a friend of mine invited me to be a part of a startup hedge fund. It was pretty early. I was new to the whole entrepreneurial field, except for a few consulting things that I've done, but never built anything. And that was a really awesome learning experience for me. I learned a lot, and that actually propelled my career into a different hemisphere. I started to learn about an entire segment that I had no idea that existed, such as venture fund and private equity fund and hedge fund and all these alternative investment space. And that led me to start thinking that, this is a space I want to be in. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be in the venture fund. I want to be an investor. So fast forward, I pivoted out of that and started teaching at City College, primarily because they had a rich entrepreneurship program at the time and loved what Baruch was doing and felt like this was a good fit, basically because I could learn about a lot of things that's going on in the entrepreneurial world. And through that, I was able to network a lot with the ecosystem in New York. Different places I would go. I remember going to Techstars and those places and just sitting down and see what they were doing and just learning and started understanding what a lot of these entrepreneurs were doing and how they were building it. Granted, I've been exposed to entrepreneurs before, but never as an advisor or an investor. And it was surreal to me just to see some of these great founders building things. And for me, the thing that I took away from it was how much I learned from it to build my career. Like the skill set that was what I didn't understand before, such as just small things like networking. If you look back, you probably look at my LinkedIn profile now, and I have about 17,000 followers. If you go back then, I didn't have a LinkedIn profile. I didn't understand the importance of networking. While I was doing these mentoring and all these things, and look at these founders, the way they network, the way they collaborated, I started saying, oh, this is actually pretty important. So I started doing a lot of that myself to build my own network, to build my own collaboration with people that were doing it. And it wasn't until 2017 when one of the things that you learn about whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working for a company, which we call entrepreneurship, when you're working for a company and you're doing entrepreneurship, is primarily just thinking about how can you add value to your employer? How can you add value? How can you add value to your community? And in 2017, I was actually trying to find a tech event to go to. At the time, I was living in Harlem, and I actually couldn't really find one. So I started doing some research, and there was actually one or two that was going on in the community, but I felt like I could bring a different perspective to it. So I actually launched the Harlem Tech Summit, basically in Harlem. It was the first one that brought a lot of the VCs that we see that are making these investment that collaborate with founders. And it was really a wonderful event. It was great. I learned a lot from it and just realized, oh, wow, I have to keep doing this and keep building it. And through that experience, I met a founder, wonderful, wonderful, smart guy, Bradley Miles. He was just infinitely smart. And a couple months.
Glenn, I think your volume went out. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Sorry about that.
I think it went out again.
Hello?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, sorry about that. I have this new mic from Yeti and it keeps just chipping out and I have to try to figure out what's going on with it. Sorry, but hopefully that's not lagging.
No problem.
Apologize for that, everyone. And like I said, I met Bradley. He was one of the founders and one of the speakers at our event. At the time, he had written a book called How to Break into Venture, which I read and I found it pretty interesting and intriguing. A couple months later, he came back to me and said he was building this thing. And I looked at it and I said, oh, wow, this is pretty game changing. He told me I came up with the idea. It was a space at the time, probably 2017. The whole digital currency was still new, was the first run of the whole Bitcoin digital currency, but he was building this authentic space where people could, if you are an influencer or you're a football player, anyone can use that platform to basically offer their clients or their followers basically digital currency through his platform. And I thought that was pretty revolutionary in my opinion. So I invested. I became an investor, and that was pretty much my first real investment, because before that I made like one, but it was just like a really small amount into a party round. Again, just to give you a background, when they say party round, it means like 50 people can come in and put like $1,000 or $500. This time I came in as right there and said, no, I want to be part of this thing, and I invested, and that was my first actual investment in it. And I learned a lot because I became mentors to some really, really good founders, and through those mentors, I learned so much. Being an investor, being a mentor, these things teach you so much. And the valuable skills that I started learning was basically the whole entrepreneur exercise taught me how to network. It really, that's one of the major skills that you learn basically when you go to work. If you want to grow, if you want to build your career, learn how to network internally in the company as well as externally. Like, find a way to network. When you're there, look for sponsors. So there's a sponsor difference between sponsor and mentor, just to give you an idea. So a mentor is somebody who will help you just do things. Probably you're trying to solve a particular problem and you're not sure, the mentor probably can help you. A sponsor goes one step more. So you want to say, change job, or you want to move up in the organization from, let's say you're an analyst and you want to become a something else, VP, that the sponsor is there to help you, to open doors for you, to say, hey, no, this person's really good. I worked with this person. I like him, so he or she's really great days. That's like unbelievable. And that's what you're looking for. So you're looking for a sponsor as well as mentor when you're there. So networking is key. The minute you start there, network across different industries, basically. So if you're in banking and you're working at, say, JP Morgan Chase, don't be afraid to go to lunch with people like Goldman Sachs and all these places, to build that network. Equally important, make sure you have a robust LinkedIn profile. Like, don't underestimate. I don't work for LinkedIn. I'm not selling LinkedIn, but I think at this moment, sometimes I find LinkedIn pretty boring, but it's okay because a lot of the business people are on LinkedIn and you want to get noticed. So demonstrate your skills. Again, not just create a LinkedIn profile and put it there, but try to highlight some of the things that you're doing. If you're students and you work on a project, let's say you're doing a coding class and they gave you something to, the professor said, build this in a group, teamwork. So right there, you're learning three different skills. So basically think about that, right? So you're learning how to work in a team, which is really great. Every single company just love teamwork. So you highlight that on your resume as well as on LinkedIn in a project. The second thing is you basically learn how to solve a problem. Basically, learning how to solve problems is really great. Problem solving is one of the major things lots of companies like to see. And the third, you learn how to communicate, which is the number one skill, soft skill that people ask for, companies ask for, employers ask for, right? Soft skills. So right there, you're demonstrating three skills that you, as an achievement that you have on your resume. So make sure you put those on your resume, and you can also put a space on it on LinkedIn. One of the beautiful thing about LinkedIn, you can put those things separately from your resume, but you can also put that and upload your resume. Every single student should have their resume uploaded on LinkedIn. Like, it should be right there front and center, right, with those skills that you're looking for. And we can talk a little bit more about that, right? So you also learn how to communicate in an industrial language, right? So every industry has their own little language. You know that too, like their own little thing, right? So if you're in venture and you don't know how to speak venture, nobody really wants to talk to you, right? So you learn how to do these things, and then you can put them on your resume, right? So you know all the little nuance. If you're in finance, the same thing. If you're an entrepreneur and you can speak to an investor and you know the language, it really goes far. It really goes well. You understand what a pitch deck look like, all these things, right? If you're in finance and you know how the financial market, you can talk about different industry norms and all these things. It goes really far. So again, make sure you understand the industrial language, and you can articulate these things on your resume and in any project that you work on, whether it is in school or outside of school. So the reason why we talk about when we talk about entrepreneurship, a lot of people get really, there's two things goes on. One, you get pretty excited. Oh wow, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Or two, they get very fearful. Like, Jesus, I'm going to fail. Like, whoa, no, I don't want to do this. I don't think I could ever build a company as big as, Facebook or one of those things. But that's not what this is about. Entrepreneurship is about building the skills, that mindset around how do we communicate well, how do we problem solve, how do we network, how do we build communities. Those are the things that you're actually building. Those skill sets that you're building are vastly more important than thinking about you building a billion-dollar company. I don't think there's any entrepreneur that ever wake up and said, my goal is to build a billion-dollar company. No, no. It's primarily they want to solve a problem that is uniquely important to them. And through the stage of iteration, they find the solution over time, right? There's a running joke, sometimes you see it on Twitter, that a 10-year process of solving the problem, which basically can say is overnight success. So pretty much 10 years to solve this major problem is an overnight success. So in retrospect, there's no overnight success. What you're doing is learning, but equally important, the things that you learn from being an entrepreneur. And again, sometimes we talk about entrepreneurship and we forget to mention people like Jay-Z and Puff Daddy and all these people, right? Because we don't really think of them. We think of them as musicians, but they're not. Musician is the medium by which they generate the wealth. But what they do is an entrepreneur activity. They get up, they build a product that people want, they figure out how to market it, and through the process, they learn how to sell themselves, how to brand, how to network, how to solve problems. And through it, both sides, they equally create resilience and grit. So if you think about the whole thing and you look at who gets celebrated the most in this whole entrepreneurial ecosystem are the people in Silicon Valley who built all of these things and the musicians. Because really and truly, people see them as one. It's just different product. On one hand, you're building some tech thing. On the other hand, you're building a music empire. But they're entrepreneurs. How they go about the process is an entrepreneurial mindset, is an entrepreneurial exercise. And that's the key factor, right? How you go about the process. So the failure, and so people get afraid of failure. But remember, think of think of the whole idea not as failure, but as learning. So throughout the process, you learn resilience and grit, right? Because things don't go right. You look at it and don't view it as, oh, I failed. And part of most student problem is that in school, and I try my best not to do it. I really try, but yeah, sometimes I have no choice when I'm teaching. In school, we give A, B, C, D, F. So students get really afraid of this failure thing, like, oh wow, I am failing because I get an F. So I think it's hard on a lot of students to change that mindset to look at this concept of something goes wrong as a learning, and through that learning you're building resilience and grit, right? So something goes wrong, you find a way to solve the problem, you fix it, you work hard. It goes wrong again, it goes good, well, so all these things are just you building up resilience and grit, and you take that to a workplace, and all of a sudden the employer just love you because they can give you things to do. Second, one of the next thing you do is become a self-starter. Being an entrepreneur, and when I say, and again, I want to emphasize the categories of entrepreneur too. You can have a really, really, really small company that's generating you five, 3,000, 4,000, $5,000 a month. That's your side hustle. We call it side hustle, right? Oh, get a side hustle, like gig economy, and that is an entrepreneurial exercise. So most people, I see students who are doing these side hustle, when they come to my class and I start talking about entrepreneurship, they don't mention it because somehow they think that that is not entrepreneurship, that what they're doing. It is entrepreneurship. So there are different levels of entrepreneurship, but the whole factor behind it is creating this entrepreneurial mindset that I'm referring to, right? Building these skills. So it's all about skill development. This whole thing is about skill development. I I am certain if you go to any one of these founders that you see out there and you realize that when they started, 99% of the skills that they have now, they didn't have it before. So any company would hire them if they say, my company is not working and therefore I'm going to look for a job. Of course, why not? They've learned all of those skill development that a corporation wants from you, right? How to network. You understand how to build up the industrial literature, how to problem solve, right? How to work in a team, how to pretty much build a brand, how resilient and grit. So if something goes wrong, you're going to find a way to solve the problem. You're going to basically work hard to solve the problem. You're going to find a way to solve the problem. You're not going to stop until that. And again, don't think all the time that failure is not an option. Sometimes we hear this saying like failure is not an option. That is not, any environment that creates that, stop the person who is going to do it from doing it. Because if you feel like failure is not an option, why would you do it? Corporations have to create the environment where people are allowed to fail and make mistakes, because by that you learn. And by learning, I think it was, I have to make sure I get this right, but I think it was Steve Jobs says that success is our worst enemy. Because we don't learn a lot from success. We learn so much from failures, because it's in those hard moments, in those moments that we have to be resilient, in those moments that we have to like find a way to solve it, is the moment we learn the most. So again, just think of those things. You shouldn't sit there and say failure is an option. No, no, no. Learning is great. Time is great, right? So the things that you're going to do, initiate. Corporations love people who are self-starters, who take initiative to see something and say, okay, I actually think there's a better way to do this, or we can generate more revenue from this, or I can save us money right here. All those things are really awesome in a way, basically, because you stop and you think about it and you say, oh, I can actually solve this problem. And you go to your boss and say, here's a solution for this problem. And your boss, oh, wow. And all of a sudden you took the initiative. So again, it separates you from the pack, right? It's a simple thing. Um, is that a question for me? Gary, let me know if you have questions. Feel free to.
Yep, nothing yet. I think that was more of a comment.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Right? So those are the things that we think about when we are asking ourselves, right, yeah, those are good comments. If you don't push the hedge, you never, right? So a lot of these things is to just remember that there's a really strong correlation between the skills that you're developing as an entrepreneur and what employers are looking for basically in someone when they're saying, I want to hire you, right? So we can differentiate these things between the soft skills and the hard skills, right? So a lot of the skills that you're learning as soft skills are problem solving, communication. Every time that I speak to an employer, communication is the number one thing that they mention that is important. Oh, every time I always like, oh wow, communication. You're a tech company and you figure more or less that they're gonna say, no, I want this person to be able to code. No, the number one thing is communication. The written and verbal. They want you to know how to communicate very well. And then everything else come after, right? Because they figure more or less, okay, I can teach you to code if you need to. Over time, you will get better at coding. But the number two thing is problem solving. Because again, a lot of people who are coding don't realize that the code is not just a code. It's something you're writing to solve a problem. So if you understand that, you start saying, oh, okay. So what is the problem I'm trying to solve? And then when you think about it that way, you start saying, oh, so I probably need to code something to solve this problem. I need to make this go faster, or I need to make this more efficient, or something. So basically, the code is just to help you, it's the means to help you solve the problem. The same thing with, I saw someone on Twitter, and they said, the problem with a lot of young people, I can't hire them to do social media marketing. And it was pretty intriguing. And the reason he gave for that is because he said young people are so in love with social media that they don't realize that it's a medium for marketing. I really hope that you understand that. That's pretty important, right? And so as a tool, Facebook, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these platforms, they have become the place you go to market. They're the biggest marketing place, right? So we call it social media marketing. That's the reason why we call it social media marketing. Basically, in the process, we create content and we create content and we write a lot of content, different ways, short and long form. Basically, we make videos, YouTube, um, whichever platform. But the reason why we're doing it is to get people to buy the things. So if, for example, I give you a case study. A friend of mine sent me a WhatsApp message 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, my daughter, she's in her basically last year of Howard University," and he said, but she's also an influencer. She has, I think it was 16 or 17,000 followers. I mean, compared to people with 1 million and all these things, right? That's like minimal. But yet, what he said was a lot of companies was reaching out to her to basically have her sell their products. I was like, pretty interesting. The reason why he was reaching out to me was he wanted me to follow his daughter so that she could get more followers. I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. So I went in and I followed her, right? So again, so she is out there being an influencer while she's in school, generating enough money to probably take care of herself, whatever. Basically, seems like she's making good money from it too, because companies recognize that she's doing the right thing with her followers. She is basically, we would say a call to action, tell them to buy something from her, and they're buying something. So companies now start saying, I'm going to hire you to become, we call them influencer, but typically they're marketers for these companies. So you should think about that, right? A key factor for you is to ask yourself, like there was this one young lady in my class, basically, and she says, well, one of the things that she said was she spent a lot of time on TikTok, probably too much time. She said, Jesus, just I'm there all the time. So I said, okay, because we were just talking about some of the things that you're passionate about that could turn into some kind of small entrepreneurial activity that could even make you $1,000. And she spent, it was crazy. Like she's just on TikTok the whole time. And what she's doing is just looking at the feeds on TikTok. So I said, okay, all right, that's good. What if I can get you to build one content on TikTok for something that you like? And it took her like probably 2 minutes to say, okay, I can try. Basically. So that's the key, right? Just try, see if it works. Again, I have to emphasize to her, it's not gonna be perfect. This thing is not gonna be perfect off the top, right? It's okay, because that's why we learn. Basically, so you start small, don't worry about what it looks like at first. The key is just to put it out there and learn, get feedback. People say, oh, this doesn't look good, it's fine, right? We have to basically learn how to deal with those things because they're good. I think it was Mark Zuckerberg who said, if what you put out is perfect, it's too late. What he means by that is, if you're going to make a product, and when you put that product, I see a lot of students do this, by the way. They sit in whether it's an incubator or accelerator on the campus, and they sit there and they build 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 because they want to get the perfect thing, right? It's a school philosophy. Our professors say, write us a paper, and we want to submit the perfect paper on the first attempt. But that is not how things are built. Even your paper, even when I tell students they still don't believe it, you should write the first draft without even thinking about the errors, because that's where you're most creative. So you should write the first paper without even thinking about the grammar. Just put things down on paper. Matter of fact, it should probably take you 4 to 5 days, if not a week, even 2 weeks, to finish that paper. If you really intentionally thinking about writing a good paper. And the first draft should just be a first draft with lots of creativity and lots of mistakes. Perfectly okay. You're not submitted it. You let that sit for a day, and you go back and you start your editing and your formatting and you move things around. until eventually you finish that paper and that is it. Well, entrepreneurship is the same thing. That first thing you put out, it's not going to look the best. You literally going to look at it and say, okay, you might not even know it's not good, quite frankly, and that's okay. What you're doing is getting feedback from people. They're giving you feedback, and you have to learn that the feedback is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's helping you to figure out how to make this better based on what the users are asking you. So what I do in my class, I give every the students 5 attempts on every single paper that they submit. Why do I do that? And no matter what I do, I can't get them to do it. I want them to take advantage of this thing. I said, your first attempt, just tell me and I'll give you feedback. Not one student do it. Because so if they send it to me and I give them feedback, I can say, oh, okay, this is good. And then they can improve it and they improve it until they get to to this product. And again, just remember it's never going to be perfect. If you're looking for perfection, it doesn't exist. So like get that out of your mind. It doesn't exist. Right? One of the weirdest things with students, again, these things just materialize in our brain, is you're in the class and you probably get a 95 on your first exam, probably get a 8 or 9 on your second exam. And if you get like probably a 92 on your third exam, you get an 8, but yet you want 100. And you sit there saying, why? Just get a 92. It's okay. So you spend all your time trying to get 100 on that one, so that are 5 classes you fail. Why did you do that? So think about those things, right? So perfection, basically, it's it's good to have a high standard, but just remember that perfection is an illusion, basically. So it's just good to have a really, 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 really high standard, but don't always try to be like 100% perfect, because that is just you ruin yourself. And for most founders, they never see perfection. Probably get to 85, 90, 95, and they probably stay 95 for the rest of their time. Because why? Things are changing. If you look at most founders today, big companies, Google, Amazon, all these companies, AI just changed their entire business model. So what they might have thought was perfect 5 years ago is no longer perfect. So if they were sitting down and said, "Oh, we're perfect. We don't need to do anything. We're good," they they would literally be out of business today. So they can never sit there to the point where they're saying that they're 100% perfect. They are sitting at 95, probably 90, and they're okay with staying at 90, because 90 is forcing them to always think about improving, improving, improving. They'll keep learning so that they can improve and always see more room to improve. Then let's let Gary, there's a question somewhere.
Yeah, we have a question for you, Glenn. This student asked how to manage your time with your teaching and current business. By teaching, I'm assuming he is saying while in college right now.
I think he's asking me while I'm teaching my classes. I think that's what he's
Ah,
asking. Or is he asking about himself while he's running his business? And is that for himself or is that for me? How I
Yeah,
manage my time?
the way I'm reading it, and Muhammad, you can give us clarity as well. I'm reading it as a question to you, Glenn. How do
Okay,
you manage your time with
that's a
teaching in
good
your current
question.
business?
That's a very good question. So it's yes, you're right. It's all about time management and prioritizing the things that you need to do, basically. So I know a lot of young people, you guys don't schedule. I don't even understand how or why, but like everything I do is on my phone. Believe it or not, my whole schedule is written down on my phone. So I'm prioritizing. I actually even prioritize my social media posts. Like I know what time I am going to I'm going to send out a post. So one of the beauty about using Canva, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Canva as a content development tool. So kind of a, I don't know if you can put it in the chat for them, Gary, Canva, as a tool. It actually allow you to set time that you want to send out your content, your posts. So it's a great thing for me. So I can, on a weekend, I can probably make 5, 6, 7 different ones and just put it there, and then just put the time beside it. So it goes out at a certain time and a certain day. So that allows me to basically do it. So for teaching, I know when I actually know what I'm going to teach in the fall semester already, and what I'm going to teach in the summer. So that's already in my calendar. So I don't need to, so I know what time I'm teaching, what days I'm teaching, and I usually use the weekend to make sure I grade. So I have time slots, right? In the morning, I'm a morning person, right? I'm pretty optimal in the morning, believe it or not. So that I love that. So even on Saturdays, I'll just get up in the morning and I'll just go through and grade what I need to grade pretty quickly. And if I need to give some comments, what I need to do, and then I just, like, if I need to do homework, like I gave homework already for 2 weeks out, believe it or not. So the students know that and they see it and they're like, okay, homework is due this day, and I can do that. So it's all about time management. Basically just managing your time and kind of just allocating the right time to do things, and making sure that you're creating schedule for everything in your phone. So Gary sent me this meeting. I want to make sure that I have a calendar invite, because why? I'm going to click accept. So it's right on my calendar, and my calendar give me a reminder half an hour before. Okay, I get ready. So you have to make sure that you're doing calendar invite for every single thing, and it's in your calendar, and there's a reminder, it's on your phone, so you kind of know. I pretty much don't like to take meetings between 7 and 10, because like I said, I'm pretty optimal. My brain is firing. So I want to get all of my productive work out of the way. The things that I need to do, need to think about. If I want to write like a blog, my brain is firing, right? So I want to do it. So I try not to take meetings. So most time you see I'm taking a meeting like at probably around 11. Cause by that time I start like, okay, all right, I don't want to bother. I'll get up, I'll probably go for a run and come back, and then I'll take the meeting or something like that. So learn what works for you, but make sure that you're scheduling. Like every single one of you know when you have exams, like I see the schedule, I see your professor syllabus, right? So we all have our time when you have exam on it. So you know when you have exams, unless you're a professor that has like a pop quiz, which is annoying. I don't get pop quizzes because I figure that must be annoying to your schedule. So you know when you have exams. So all those things should be in your calendar. Like I know when I have exam, you put those in your calendar. So you kind of get a sense of when you need to study hard and when you're not. So when you have downtime, you can actually, if you're doing a side business, you do it, and you basically do it equally well. So it's imperative that your time management, again, time management is one of those skills that organizations love, right? You can manage your time. So they don't want to give you a project and the due date it's not completed. So it's just like, what happened? So basically learning how to manage your time from now in school. And by the way, it's hard when you're transitioning as a school life to the work life, because a lot of students I find don't do those things in school. But believe it or not, you'll be surprised that the time management, I say to students, and it's really hard for students to write there. Consistency, and let me explain consistency consistency and time management equals success. So consistency is, if you can do 2 hours a day, every day, on something for your life, you're better off doing it, because that is repetition, and repetition really teaches us a lot, as opposed to spending 5 hours on something and then don't do it again for the next 2 weeks and then spending 5 hours. You really and truly just you're starting over from scratch. So the things that you did, you realize, oh, I don't really remember it. So you starting over. So if you just put in an hour or two on a subject and just like every day, just review the materials, all those things, when it's time to study for the exam, you're going to find that studying is much easier because you're familiar with the content. You're familiar with the material. So studying for it won't take you 24 hours. Right? So create consistency in what you're doing. Create consistency. And believe it or not, so basically you'll hear the term a lot. Consistency is the same word for compounding, right? You must have heard it, compound interest. So you can get up one day and say, oh, I'm going to put $1 million in the stock market and I'm going to get rich. Okay, that happens. Might happen. 1 out of 10 people, 1 out of 100. But if you just put $100 every month in an index fund in the stock market, you probably equally get rich. It's compound interest, right? Just do it, like every time you get paid, just put $100. Consistency, compounding, right? Is the same concept. Same concept, basically, with learning. Same thing with social media. You're never going to get 1 million followers the first time you do it. I guarantee you the first 6 months, you probably have 1 follower. But all of a sudden, you just start realizing that because people keep seeing your content over and over and over and over and over, people start liking it. Then all of a sudden, you just see the followers start growing, growing, and growing. Consistency, right? So start developing those things in it. And then time management. Learn to manage your time through this process. It will help you a lot. We always say in school, it's not the smartest students that do well, it's students who can really manage their time and then add that consistency to it. Like really just like, you know what, find 1 hour a day, 2 hours. It's like, again, same thing, like riding a bike, right? You know, you get up tomorrow morning, you buy a bike and you say, I can't ride, and you jump on it, and all of a sudden you're riding like perfectly. It's gonna happen. It's really, if you figure it out, it's because you're riding every day for 2 to 3 hours. One day you wake up and you're just like riding, oh wow, I'm a super bike rider now. It's just what it is, right? So focus on those things. Manage your time really well. Set time that is optimal for you. If you're a night person and you get the best work done between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., then that's what it is. Use that time to do your most productive and hardest work. And a lot of times to try to get the hardest work out of the way. And a lot of these things we take for granted, but think about it. If you ever see these people that tell you about how to pay off your credit cards, right? And you will see somebody with like 5 credit cards and they want to pay them off. What is it that this person tell you to do? Take the one with the highest balance and pay it off first. Why do you think they tell you that? Because that big balance, when you pay it off, is the hardest thing. You have this sense of gratification, like, oh, I did it. Whoa. And then the rest just becomes easy. Well, it's the same thing, right? So when you're most optimal, don't hesitate to do the hard work. Like you're in a math class and it's hard, don't shy away from it. Like wait until when you're your peak hours. Every single person should know their peak performance hours. And during that point in time, tackle those hard problems. Tackle those hard problems. Get them out the way and say, okay, it's done. So everything else is just easy. Like, oh wow, okay, this is easy. This is pretty easy. And I remember when I first started building content, because I'm going to be honest with you, I started doing this probably around 15 years ago. And in the first couple of years, I did not like this thing. I was like, oh, Jesus. Whoa, whoa. And that was before even I was doing it on Adobe, which was really hard for those of you who use Adobe. Canva just makes it easier, like super easy to build content across the whole spectrum. So Adobe was really hard. But so I used to make 1 and make 2, and over time I just got better at it. I know how to write basically caption. I got a better sense of what to write. So it's just learning and look at other people, like benchmark, learn to benchmark, right? Learn to benchmark. Look at what people are doing that quantifies as success, and don't be afraid to say, okay, I'm going to try some of these things, basically. So I spend a lot of time on Twitter learning. Like I follow the best people on Twitter, and I'm just looking how they, sometimes I just look and see how they write their content and how the caption looks like and how they articulate it. Go on YouTube and see the best YouTubers or they create video and say, oh, so I'm constantly iterating my content, basically. Again, that same consistency. So each time I go in, I learn how to do it better, and I just do it better, and I do it better and do it better. To now I can just sit back and write a blog. Like I can literally just sit back and in an hour just write a blog because I now have a good format. And if you don't like writing, you can do a couple of things. I was listening to this lady and I don't remember her name, but on NPR, and she's a writer, and she was talking about basically take a writing workshop. If writing is something that you don't really like, take a writing workshop. You can take a writing workshop, right? Because again, whole process for us is to improve, right? So take a writing workshop. If for some reason you didn't take English 101 or you just ignore it and you want to kind of learn how to write a little bit better now, don't be afraid to take a writing workshop. Take a quick write, so they can teach you how to like move things along pretty quickly. But again, not being an expert at the writing, I can tell you, I just follow a lot of these things, and what works is just get the thing done on paper first. Don't hesitate to get the things on paper. Matter of fact, I would even go a little bit further with all these AI tools that are out there. Don't be afraid to use AI as a content generator. Don't let it write your article. Let it generate ideas for you. So you might have an idea in your head and you can't really bring that's the beauty now in today's world, right? We can't be stuck. So just put the idea into one of these tools, whether it's ChatGPT or one of these places, and it pops out some idea for you, and you look at it and say, oh, this is some good idea. This makes sense. And then you use that to write your article. Again, don't let it write your article because most people are going to know it's an AI tool. And if you don't say it's an AI tool, nobody's going to like it, basically. So you can just use it to generate ideas for you. You can actually use it as an editor tool as well. So if you're writing and you feel like, I'm afraid I might make a lot of errors and mistakes, well, these AI tools can become an editor for you. So you can write your stuff and plop it into an AI and it will edit it for you. Right? And
So
that,
many gems. So many
yeah,
gems.
so right. And
So
that
many
way
gems.
you are learning to write better because you're seeing what this looks like. So it's doing two things for you, right? One is helping you with your idea and your forms, but it also makes you a better writer. If you're so make sure you're looking at like you're paying attention. Oh, okay. Read it through and just see what because and I'm certain that at this point most of you know that the only way we become good writers is by reading a lot.
Mm,
Believe it or
mm,
not. Like read the best thing, whether it's a blog, an article on LinkedIn, all these things. Just read a lot. So we become better writers from reading because we see, right? So it's okay. You must have an editor. If you're afraid to have an editor, believe it or not, it's not going to work for you. So don't be afraid to have someone look it over. Like, I wrote this thing. Can you look it over for me? Yeah, sure. And be okay with them giving you there's some things wrong with it. So AI can replace that person if you want. So use those tools basically if you want to make it. And again, just write a lot. And the beauty about writing on social media, even if you make mistakes, it's not as bad as your content is. It's good, right? So let it use it as a tool to make these mistakes and get better at writing and get better. Because I guarantee you, when you write it and post it, and the next time you will read it, you'll realize, oh Jesus, I made a mistake. Like you'll see it the second time. You say, oh,
right.
I made a mistake. So you will learn from that and just keep going and going and going. But again, in today's world, we can limit the mistakes because we have so many tools that can help us with editing. Grammarly, other AI tools, Google, even Google, basically, all of these tools are really good. They can help us with editing, basically. So those are really, and like I said, most blogs shouldn't go over a page and a half, a newsletter. There's so many places you don't even need to, we don't even need to create crazy blog page, right? You can go to Medium and set up a blog page. For those of you who want to start a blog, there's a platform called Medium. You write it, you put it, they format it for you. Gary will send out a lot of these things and just share it with you guys. Medium basically is a platform. There are other tools for newsletters, Substack, Beehive, a lot of these platforms. Matter of fact, Beehive is really a creator's platform. So if you want to make money off of your newsletter, they will actually pay you and find you people who wants to pay you to read your newsletter. So you can actually use Beehive basically as a platform that you can use. So you can start these little things. Again, you're learning a lot of skills that you can take. Because remember I said communication is the #1 skills organization are looking for, written and verbal, oral, right? So if you can develop that writing skills from now by writing blogs, writing newsletters, writing different things on social media. Because again, in the beginning, one of the mistake I used to do, I'm not a big Instagram person, but when I used to post on Instagram, I would put the content, but I would basically kind of forget to write the caption. That was a big mistake. That's a big mistake. So the more I learned about how to write caption, I was equally important to basically put it up. I see something that 1:30 we are officially closed. So why don't I open this up to question? Because we just have 3 minutes. So let's take some questions.
Yeah, no problem. And if Glenn, if you got a few minutes, like we can stop the recording, and if anybody want to stay on, if you got a few minutes.
Oh yeah, no, sure. No, I have
Well,
I can get a few minutes. But basically, so these are the skills that I want you. So think when you think of this whole entrepreneurial thing, start small with it and recognize that whatever you do in entrepreneurship is the mindset of entrepreneurship that's important. It allows you to build skills that employers are looking for. Just to summarize, networking skills. Use the opportunity to network, and you learn that when you're basically doing an entrepreneur, right? So you learn how to network, understand the industry norms and literature and language. You're learning those things. So whatever field that you're building in, you will learn a lot of things from it. Problem solving. One of the key things about problem solving is basically critical thinking, learning from failures, basically. So we constantly learn, we are iterating as we go along. In the whole startup ecosystem, we say build, measure, learn, which means that you build something, you talk to your users to measure if it's solving a problem for them, and then we learn from that, and then we build again. So that's the whole circular concept of it. So you problem solve, you're constantly problem solve, you're innovating and creativity and critical thinking from problem solving. Big thing, you're building your own personal brand, right? So you're building your own personal brand, which also will affect the corporation when you're there. I see a lot of people on Twitter that works at companies like Microsoft and all this, and they're constantly on Twitter just tweeting their own personal brand, right? So you build your own personal brand, which again, companies see those things, you become good candidate that they want to recruit, right? They see that because you're confident, resilience and grit, right? Because the more you go through this process, the more you become resilient, right? Because things are going to go bad and you're there to fight through it. You're there to overcome it, all those things. Basically, you're a self-starter. You can take initiative. So people like that, right? You're a self-starter. You can take initiative. I don't need to sit down and wait for me to come to you to say, do you need something to do? Or no, they want to know that you're a self-starter. You will take initiative. You find ways, things that needs to get done, you can get it done. So those are the things that I would basically tell you. And just again, whatever you do, incorporate entrepreneurial exercises in your career. It really provides you with these skill sets that you're looking for. Basically, what organization, corporation, employers are looking for. So I would significantly encourage you to just do these things and start finding a way. Start pretty small. Start pretty small. It doesn't matter. Don't think of the end result as, oh, I need to build this big thing. Just think small. Just start doing some entrepreneurial experience and some activities. And it can be simple as writing a blog or a newsletter, or it can be simple as posting things on social media with the intent for somebody to buy something small from you.
Glenn, this is a gem. This is a super gem. And if I was the listener, because you have such a wealth of information, I would follow you on LinkedIn.
Oh
If I
yeah,
had,
no, sure. Let me see if can I put my LinkedIn. I put
yeah,
my LinkedIn profile
absolutely.
there.
I would,
Absolutely, yeah.
that's what I would do. I would follow you on LinkedIn because I know the one thing I've learned from these settings, these virtual settings, or even in-person sessions, people have questions, they have comments, they have thoughts. And for whatever reason or another, sometimes they don't feel comfortable sharing them in the setting. That's fine. But do not let a question you have go unanswered. Glenn, I want to thank you for spending your time with us and presenting. We appreciate you all who signed in today for participating with us. Be on the lookout for an email of today's recording. And we're going to have our next Lunch and Learn on March 13th. It's going to be on Zoom as well. So you can check our Instagram page, our LinkedIn profiles with the actual meeting details for our next Lunch and Learn on March 13th. So for all those who would like to stay on for a little bit, you can. And for everyone else, have a good day. Bye-bye.